mind, but it's very nice. So just to catch you before you all do. And just so you know what happens from here on, so we've got ending dates on Friday, and then we get the judges a meeting next week to decide on the finalists, and we'll announce the finalists once that process has gone through. The finalists, as well as anybody who wants to, can attend a pitching workshop, which will be on the 17th of July. Alex mentioned Alan Craig, or Alan Craig Jr. will be
So I think Alan Craig
Jr. will be doing the presentation on pitching on the 17th of July. So the finalists, as well as anybody else who'd like to attend, are welcome. And the finalists will then pitch to the final judging panel on the 24th of July. And the winners will get announced at the Cargo event on the 31st of July. So keep watching your email and looking forward to getting your submissions this Friday. But yeah, I'll open up the floor now to questions from you. Alex. How many finalists? A minimum of 15. There might be more depending on the number of actual submissions we get. So that will be the plan and stuff.
Rising trends. Someone said that United States trend gets to 2% of the population starts jumping. How do you know whether that trend is viable or something you should follow? How do you know that how people find out, on the internet or wherever, how to trust this trend? Because it seems like that the possibility of being more running in the trend is, that's a great idea, because if you read the trend, it's going to be great, but how do you know you're reading the right trend?
It's a little bit of art, science, and luck. How do you kind of got to weigh up the odds. I think you need to try and do as much research as possible. So, if you can see that this is a massive problem and a lot of people are trying to solve the product, then you can see this is something that's really needed, trend is tapping into things. It's often how you do it, how you position things to tap into broader trends that makes the difference. So, there are research databases, but it depends, it's quite tricky to find out. So there's a lot of free research out there, but it's all about finding the research that's relevant to you and the research that's most up to date and stuff. So consumer industries are actually quite easy to find information for. Anything to do with FMCG, ICT is also quite easy to find information for. Pharmaceuticals, medical stuff, that's all. You have research databases, but
but it's painful to access it.
But you should have some kind of electronic resources actually at your library. Yeah. So if you go into your library internet, you should go and ask librarians what electronic market research databases they've got access to. They should have licenses to Business Insights and Marketline and.
I keep thinking about market development, like maybe you can make people think that it's trendy and that's why it's trendy. You know what I mean? Like because you said need, and then I thought like market development, like how big a role the company actually plays in making it a brand.
That makes sense because you can actually grow the trend if you so want to.
Well, you can't really bull your way through it, but like maybe just making it more effective than other, and thereby in a way kind of leading the market by innovation of new concepts or having participate in that.
Yes, I think you can, but I think you need to, again, it's a tricky kind of, how much time do you spend convincing your market that it's trendy to use your product versus actually selling a bill?
Well, I don't think we should ever convince. I think it's service. That's the only everything is all about getting service. And I think a lot of people are falling out now because they're like, they want the money, but they're not looking at the need, as you said.
Yeah. But so I think you can create a market and you can do market development, but you've got to weigh up what's the opportunity cost of that time, of that money, and of the resources you have available. Have you guys done your finance picture? What every single one of you should actually work out is what is your cost of acquisition for customer, cost of customer acquisition. And that will tell you how much time you spend in developing your market versus actually making a sale. So how many of you are doing software-based businesses? Okay. Google TechCrunch Teardown, 1, part 1, 2, and 3. Theory. TechCrunch Teardown, 1, 2, and 3. Basically, they take the 10 business models there are on the internet, whether it's gaming, e-commerce, social network, affiliate network, whatever. And they basically tell you what kind of stats you have to get to build a $10 million company. And all the different conversion rates. And then you can see what your cost of customer acquisition is. So if it costs you $1 to advertise on Google AdWords, but it takes you only ever have 1 in 100 people that visit your site signing up, your cost of customer acquisition is R100. Because you need to pay R1 to get 100 customers to your site for 1 customer to even log on and buy something. That's your customer acquisition cost, R100. So that's what you need to kind of work out. And that will also give you some clues of how much you spend in developing your market. And I would look for long stuff that's a little bit more long term. If it's trends and viral, it's very quick, and people adopt it very rapidly, they can also adopt it very rapidly. So what are the barriers to entry? With something that are you really tapping into a trend, or are you tapping into a fad? Is it just a gimmick, or is it a nice to have, or is it a wow product? So you need to, it's about value versus cost. Sorry, I'm going to go back to the talking here. So, this is differentiation. And this is value to your customer. This is high. Okay. If it's not really differentiated and there's no real value, then you've got basically a
This is a kind of a lot of speculation.
no, it's not actually one of the wait, I'm going to just sorry, give me 1 second. But basically, it's what you want is you want a wow product here. So you want a product which provides high value to your customer and kind of differentiates it. Okay. if you have something, if it is low value but highly differentiated, then it's a gimmick. Okay. If it's got low value and it's not very differentiated, then you really have a loser. Yeah. And if it's high value with no differentiation, then you've got so what? So there's no incentive for your customer to. So when I was talking about best, cheaper, different, new, that's what I was talking about, not differentiated. So how are you positioning yourself? And then what is the value that you ascribing to your customer? So something that's a high value item, so it's solving a burning need and it's doing it differently as a wow product. So it's an iPad. I mean, that's really honestly where. So what is kind of, so what would be, not necessarily apples, but it would be something like, yeah, it's high value, but if you haven't really differentiated insurance products, I mean, you're just probably going to go on price. You know, you're going to compare apples with apples, and then, you know, insurance is insurance is insurance. Yes, it makes a difference to my life, but I'm going to basically, you know, I can see differentiated naturally for solar products. A loser, I mean, if you really started to do another group buying site, that would be very much a loser play at the moment, because then people are actually getting irritated. They're not finding that value for group buying services. There's no differentiation. And it's slinky is probably enough to get. I mean, you know, kids fad, you know, this was a really faddish shirt. You're not going to go to buy a slinky every month, you know. Okay. Yes.
I was related to the trend. I was concerned a lot in which category one falls as the keeper. For example, I see two basic categories there. One is the followers and the other category is the leaders of trends, right? Statistically, we have many more followers and leaders where people take example Steve Jobs. He didn't use trends. We introduced the iPad, for example, iPod, I've got the iPod Nano product. But it was also following another trend, the iPad, was for more mobility, simply using space, with more graphical kind of thing. But where does it leave us? The majority of us probably will be followers. Nothing wrong with that. We're on you will not be. Should you dare to become a leader, or it costs you to try?
It depends on your product and your risk profile, because often, this is what they, you know, your adoption curves also differ. So your adoption curves often tend to be like this, and then so you kind of get, these are your initial adopters, and then it kind of, that's where you kind of almost, so, you know, how do you know, this is Adam, okay? This is Adam, my classmate in the UK, when the first iPad came out. He had his PhD in physics at the age of 26, and he went and stepped outside in February, outside the Apple Store pavement, for the very first iPhone. Okay, and I don't know where the hell Adam was. I was like, where are you? And showed me this package, and I was like, what is it? He's like, it's a new iPhone. And he was like, and I was like, okay, well, aren't you going to use it? He's like, no, contracts don't come out for another 2 weeks, but I've got the first one. And it's like, that's Adam. You know, he's your early adopter. You know, he's the guy who sleeps outside. Okay, but then you've got this kind of chasm here, which you have to get through as a business to actually make it economically viable before you have uptake, especially with new technology. So this is where your big technological market is there. The chasm between your early adopters and your mainstream users. So it's the people who have good cell phones and could afford massively expensive new pieces of technology before you could buy a cell phone because they gave them away for free or something.
In connection with this earlier question on how do we actually judge a trend, Warren Buffett says that you shouldn't use the market as a guide, as your guidance when you make an investment decision. The market is there certainly when it's on the stock market. You should look at the fundamentals of that company which you're interested in investing in.
More intuitive, I think the same is the age of conceptualization, or some guy said that there is a more intuitive element coming up, and that's why the West is finding the so-called East Asia formidable competitor in that respect, because I think they may be naturally, I don't know, more intuitively on that, but I'm just
No, I'm not saying that trends and trend research to back up your market research is important. But this is a tiny, tiny little part of your entire overall business plan, business model, and justification for why you would invest or do anything in a business. It's almost like a kind of a when you look at trends, you look at trends also for indications of where markets are moving, things you can tap into, but you don't do it as an only justification for your investment. So it's obviously, you look at all the business model, you look at the customer feedback, you look at the technical information, you look at the patents, you look at the lab results, you look at the team, you look at the distribution and route to market. Is that all feasible? And then this is a very small part of market research, but it's using those trends to assumptions and to justify why you're considering things and what you can tap into and how do you market and sell this to your entities.
Last question.
Yeah, last question. Quick one. You mentioned there is a fund for renewable energies. Where can I find information about it?
It's called Inspired Evolution, inspiredevolution.co, and it's very early stage technology. They don't do much VC, they do quite a lot of private equity based funding, so after feasibility stage, testing stage. But I think if you're looking at developing completely new technologies, you probably have to chat to someone like TIA or IDC. They have very good deep pockets and will be investing for a very long time.